Everybody, happy Thursday. You are listening to Mental Fitness Matters. I am your host, Tracy Alston, and this is WSIC Radio. Happy Thursday. I hope everyone out there is having a great week. We are already midway through February, whether we know it or not, whether we're ready or not. Time is flying, so we better buckle up and get ready because no matter what, it's going forward and it's going fast. I am excited about today's show because I'm going to talk about a topic that I think we've all been hearing more and more about, and we're watching it really kind of play out right before our eyes. And it's a topic that's around emotional exhaustion and mental fatigue. Emotional exhaustion and mental fatigue. Recent research has shown that there's been an increase in the reportings of burnout, stress, anxiety, depression, and mental fatigue. And I think it's safe for us to say that we all expected those numbers to go up considering what's going on. But one of the major things that sticks out for me is that we're so hyper-focused right now on this crisis known as COVID-19, vaccinations, washing your hands, social distancing, that I think we could really lose sight of the crisis that is brewing in the shadows. And that's the crisis around mental health. The truth is, I believe right now, if we don't start putting infrastructures in place to really begin to support our teams, our organizations, our staff, your family, and most importantly, yourself, that when the dust finally settles and when we're going to recognize that we're left with this massive destruction as it relates to the country's mental and emotional well-being. And we're seeing evidence of that right now. There was this psychologist, I was reading an article, and there was this psychologist that was quoted saying that looking back causes sadness and looking ahead creates uncertainty. The only thing left to do in this scenario that remains unpleasant and uncertain after almost a year of struggle is to focus on the here and the now and bet on self-care. And when I heard that, I said, that's the message right there. That's the message right there. I couldn't agree more with that statement. Self-care and making our mental health and emotional fitness a priority has to become part of our daily checklist. Just like everything else that we're doing each day, whether you're putting on your mask and washing your hands, self-care and mental check-ins have to become part of our daily checklist. I'm going to check in with you guys right now. I want to ask you guys a question. It's going to lead into today's topic. I want to know, have you ever paid attention to how much mental energy your brain requires and how much mental energy you use each day? Think about that for a second. Have you ever noticed how much mental energy you're using every single day? If you go through a list of your tasks, your responsibilities, the things that you have to do for others, the things that you have to do for yourself, you're going to recognize that your brain is constantly working. It's constantly on. It never really shuts off. And if you didn't know, your brain is a sending and receiving mechanism, okay? I like to liken the brain to a supercomputer. You know, it's this processing unit. It's always sending and receiving information. You're always thinking about the next task, something to do, trying to be productive. It's always on. So you have to ask yourself, what are we doing to recharge and replenish our brain's resources, right? If we're constantly using this every single day, what are we doing to recharge and replenish our brain's resources? Now think about your cell phone. It's also a sending and receiving mechanism. All day long, if you think about it, you're sending text messages, you're checking your emails, you're scrolling through social media, you're getting phone calls. Your cell phone is constantly by your side. It's constantly working. It's constantly looking up information. It's constantly using its data and resources. So it's also a sending and receiving mechanism. So when you also check on your cell phone, you have this little indicator that shows how much battery life you have left. If you've ever noticed, if you go through your day using your phone, you may get this alert that shows how much energy your phone has used. A lot of apps require more energy than others. But at the end of the day, you also get this message that shows how much screen time you've spent doing, how much energy and resources your phone has used up. You also get alerts about your brain's power life. 20% notification, 10% notification. Your battery's almost dead, low battery. So you get all these messages that you need to recharge and replenish and refuel your cell phone. So if you think about your brain in the same way, as this sending and receiving mechanism, always on, always being used, always being worked, if we're having to charge our phones at night, why don't we think we need to do the same thing for our brains? And not only at night, because I know you guys, if you checked in for the show last week, I did a show on sleep. And we learned that quality sleep is a great tool to recharge, replenish, and go through the healing process, everything our brain needs to power back up the next day. But what I also shared on last week's show is that a lot of us aren't getting the quality sleep that we need. So even in the recharging process, we're not even really doing that in an efficient way that's going to give us something back on the back end. So if we start to think about our brain as a sending and receiving mechanism, very much like our cell phone, the need to recharge, refuel, to figure out how we're depleting our energy is very, very important, okay? So we're going to have to begin to incorporate solutions into our daily lives that ensure that we are a priority, that self-care becomes something that we take more control over in figuring out how we can get the best use out of our brain's resources, okay? So in today's show, I'm going to provide you guys with a tip and a tool that you can use on how to overcome mental fatigue and how to get the best use out of your brain's resources. Because believe it or not, the better you feel, the better you perform. The better you feel, the better you perform. You can't give what you don't have. And a lot of us for so long have been giving and living off reserves. And it's time for us to make some changes in that. So before we start and before I provide you guys with that tool, I want you guys to really kind of understand what mental fatigue is, okay? Mental fatigue is a condition triggered by prolonged cognitive activity. It's basically something that sends your brain into overdrive, right? Leaving you feeling exhausted. This can interfere with your productivity and overall cognitive functioning. So symptoms of mental fatigue or emotional exhaustion can look like a lack of motivation, having frequent mental blocks. So if you're kind of going throughout your day and it's like you just kind of have this brain fart and you're having these mental blocks, irritability, stress eating or loss of appetite, insomnia, anxiety, sadness, anger, and just really exhausted and tired. So think about that for yourself. Do a self-check. I think everybody probably at this moment right now has experienced some or all of those symptoms on that list, right? Because the truth is, guys, everyone's tired. Everyone's tired. When you have to think about what we're dealing with as this COVID pandemic is here, everyone is tired. So the first thing you got to do is just be compassionate with yourself. Show some kindness to yourself. Allow yourself to feel whatever those emotions are that are coming up for you right now. Don't judge yourself for those. It's absolutely normal. You are human. So the very first thing you got to do is be kind to yourself. Be compassionate with yourself, because if you're not compassionate with yourself, you can't be compassionate for anybody else, right? Everybody's tired right now. No matter who you are on this planet, this has had an impact on you in one way or another. First responders, the frontline workers, they're exhausted with the pressures and demands of the things that they're facing every single day. People are tired of losing loved ones and the death tolls rising. People are tired of wearing masks. People are tired of social distancing. Teachers are tired of being on Zoom trying to teach these kids. Parents are exhausted. Everybody's tired. So let's start with that understanding that you are not alone in this situation. So you need to right now just feel okay, feeling what you feel. Allow yourself to acknowledge that what you're going through and the feelings and emotions that you have are completely normal. And I think once you begin to recognize that, that's going to allow you to manage what's to come. Because I think we can feel like we're in this crisis of COVID, but guys, COVID didn't cause a crisis. COVID has exposed one. COVID has exposed many crises, especially around mental health. I think for such a long time, people have been stressed. People have been depressed. People have been self-medicating. People have been unhappy and struggling for a long time. And situations and circumstances in life, a lot of times bring those things to a head. And that's why I think mental fitness is so important. And that's why I'm so excited to bring conversations like this to this community, because I think it's long overdue that we're having conversations about mental health being just as important as our physical health and wellness, okay? Because it's not about if things happen. It's about when things happen, are we mentally fit to withstand the blows, right? And I want this community to be in a position that as this dust settles, that we're in front of the line. Right now, we're just in the eye of the storm, right? We're in the eye of the storm. But this mental health pandemic, that's been a crisis, right? Being tired and exhausted is normal right now. So know that. Being tired and exhausted is a normal feeling right now. But worrying about things outside of our control doesn't change anything. So right now, it's the time that we have to begin to focus on what we can do for ourselves and begin to put plans in place to take care of self first so that we can better take care of everybody else. And when we think about the example that I gave you guys about that phone battery needing to be charged, being depleted and overused, begin to think about your brain being depleted and exhausted of its resources. So anything that's being drained and depleted has to be replenished and recharged, okay? So the first thing we got to do, the first step in overcoming mental fatigue is to become aware of the sources or the things that are draining our mental and emotional energy, right? Remember, I said your brain is a sending and receiving mechanism. So all day long, it's working. We have to become mindful of what and how we're outsourcing our brain's energy. How are you outsourcing your brain's resources? So we're going to start to track this behavior. We're going to start to track ourselves in terms of how are we outsourcing our brain's energy. At your convenience, I'm going to have you guys go to tracyalston.com. I've already created a worksheet for us to kind of work through, but on this show, I'm going to talk us through how we're going to do that and how you're going to begin to keep track of your mental load throughout your week. This is going to help you make sure you get more use and better use out of your brain's energy, because a lot of times mental fatigue, it comes from overworking ourselves. It just comes from constant exhaustion of our brain's usage. And a lot of times when we get a break, we're just making up for what we've missed the last week, or we're just throwing things in. So we're never really shutting our mind off. So I created a tool that we can begin to use together to monitor how we're spending our brain's resources. All right. And I'm going to call this thing brain power, how we're really using our brain's power. OK, so the first thing I want to do, I want you guys to imagine that your brain is like a bank account that has $100 in it. OK, imagine your brain is like a bank account that has $100 in it. So you're starting out with $100. I also want you, as we're thinking about your brain as a bank account, think about your own bank account. Have you ever checked your bank account and asked yourself, where did my money go? Right? You're swiping, you're at Target, you're getting pizza, you're eating out, you're hanging out, and you look in your bank account and you're like, what happened to my money? I want you to start to look at your brain in the same way, okay? Right now, your brain has $100 in it. You're going to start to pay more attention about where is my brain's mental energy going? How am I spending my time? How am I spending my thoughts? How am I spending my energy? Because it's going out a lot, but what are we putting back in, all right? So the first thing, imagine your brain has $100 in it. It's a bank account, right? Then I want you to create a list. Begin to kind of think about your own community, your own environment, your own to-do list each day. Create a list of 5 things that you would consider that deplete your brain bank account, okay? So 5 things that you feel that are kind of taxing on your brain's energy. Just create a list of those 5 things that you do each day that could be considered something that depletes your brain's energy. Then you're going to also create a list of about 5 things that replenish or recharge your brain's bank account, that gives you something back in a positive way. So we're going to pretend that every transaction you make that depletes you in some way, that means it takes away from you, not in a positive way, but in more of a negative way. It depletes you. That's going to cost you $10. All right. Then we're going to pretend that every transaction that you have that gives you something back, that replenishes you, or you consider that self-care, that it's a positive thing for you, it earns you $10. And let's say that throughout your day, for whatever reason, you have transactions that you consider depleting, but also replenishing. So it's a both and, positive and negative. For example, if you love what you do, like I love my work, I love my job, I don't consider that a negative. I love what I'm doing, but I know it takes from me, it depletes me, but it also gives me something back. So transactions that you consider to deplete you and replenish you, we're going to say that costs you nothing. You don't lose anything. You don't earn anything. It's just what it is. All right. So if it depletes you, it costs you 10. If it replenishes you, it gives you 10. And if it's somewhere in between, nothing happens. So follow this scenario. Let's say you're starting your day out, right? You get up in the morning, you're fully charged. You got $100 in an account. You're ready to rock and roll. Very first thing you do, you wake up, your alarm goes off. So you decide to check your cell phone. You check your cell phone. You got emails, text messages that you need to respond to. In your mind, these emails, these messages are very stressful. They don't make you feel good. So let's say off the bat, you've lost $10. You get up Go into the room, get ready for work, you're getting dressed, you turn on the TV and your TV station comes on, CNN's on, you're watching the news. You don't really want to watch the news, but it's on, you want to know what's going on. You feel like crap after you watched it, so there goes another 10, right? Then you got to get ready for work. And on work today, you got to be on a Zoom call, right? You got to be on a Teams meeting, Zoom call, and the thought of having to be on that call for the next 2 hours makes you go to a place that you're not so excited about. So there goes another 10. Then you get on the phone, right? You got a phone call to answer. It's not even 11 o'clock yet. You're on the phone call, you got to answer. It's pretty stressful. You got to handle some business and you're not really too excited about that. So there goes another $10. Guys, it's not even lunchtime yet. And you're already down $40. And you still have half the day to go. And you realize I haven't done anything right now that's really giving me anything back. And it's already 11 o'clock, almost lunchtime. I'm looking forward to that. But I'm already down 40. So I'm starting that conversation off with a little exaggeration, but that could be your real life scenario. Every time you wake up in the morning, you're starting in the negative. So the very first thing I want us to do is become aware. We got to start to recognize, where is my money going? Where is my brain's energy going? So the very first thing you're going to do is create that list and figure out, as you're going through your day, what types of things are taking from you, that you're having to do, that are taking from you. And you're going to start to become more intentional about incorporating some of the things in your list that replenish you. Because what we got to do is start to be mindful of how we're spending our brain's energy and our brain's resources. Because you can't give what you don't have. And if it's already halfway through your day and you're down to $60 with a whole day to go and more Zoom calls to go, by the end of your day, you're going to be sitting at zero. And when I want to teach us how to get our account up so that we can be running off a full tank on a full account or a balanced account, so that we can be more productive, we can be happier, we can be more beneficial to the communities and the lives that we impact, okay? So the first thing you're going to do, when you go to tracyalston.com, you can go to the WSIC show on my link. You're going to download a worksheet that I've already have created for you. So I'm saving your brain's energy and resources right now so you don't have to do any work here. You're just going to print this out and you're going to follow along and you're going to start to keep track. You're going to have a little slot that asks about the time. You're going to see how much time you're spending making positive transaction or things that replenish you versus how much time you're spending with the negative transaction or things that deplete you, okay? And this is going to require self-awareness. This part I can't do for you guys, okay? I'm going to give you some examples, but this is going to really require you to go through some self-awareness and self-reflection and figure out what depletes you. Because what depletes you and what depletes me can look totally different, right? What replenishes you and what replenishes me can look totally different. So I want you to go through, take a moment, and ask yourself, what are some things on my list right now that I would say are depleting my energy or making me feel worse when I have entered that situation? When I leave that situation, I feel worse. An example of depletion could be the news. I just kind of gave you that example. If you watch the news and you don't feel so good after watching that news, start to really pay attention to how you feel. Okay, that's an indicator that you need to do more or less of those things. Okay, so if the news is something that brings up negative feelings and emotions for you, consider that as something that may deplete you. Financial stressors that pop up, you know, dealing with finances, things that are going out. Remember, you're spending money literally, but that also takes away from your fuel and your energy. So that could be a depletion. If you're having to deal with family or friends, if you have people in your life that you talk to on the phone every single day and they're not giving you something back, that could be a depletion of your energy. So pay attention to the conversations that you're having. If these people are making you feel worse after you talk to them, you're going to have to limit that, okay? So that could be under the depletion list. Zoom calls or phone calls, things that you have to do, being mindful that they're taking energy from you, okay? So create a list of about 5 things that you know of right now that deplete or take your energy from you, okay? You're going to write that on this worksheet that I have here, and you're going to write the time that these things happen, all right? Then you're going to think about the things that replenish you, just like your phone. Remember, your phone needs to be plugged in and charged. These are going to be things that charge you. Think about this as, how am I putting money in the bank? What brings the money in? So on the replenishing side, the recharge side, what are those things that give you something back? Who are those people? What does that environment look like? What times work best for you? So you're going to start to think about things that recharge you as things that make you feel loved, It can make you feel happy. It can make you feel secure. It can make you feel safe. It can make you feel seen, validated, and heard. Think about replenishment as something that gives you something back. And that may look different for everybody. Okay. So if I say I like to meditate and you say thinking about meditation stresses me out, this doesn't need to go on your replenishing list. Remember, your replenishing list needs to be something that you can dive in and you are recharged when you get up. It can be something like a nap. It can be music. It can be podcasts. Go ahead and download that Mental Fitness Matters podcast. I know you guys are listening, so make sure you download and subscribe to that. It can be gratitude journals. It can be taking a walk in nature, having positive statements, listening to positive messages, visualizing or putting something in front of your face, whether it's a picture of your family, a picture of your pets, your animals, something that when you look at it, when you hear it, when you see it, when you smell it, when you taste it, when you touch it, you feel like the world is just lit up with joy and happiness. Okay. It's not taking anything from you, but it's giving you a whole lot back. And a good way to do that is just go through your 5 senses. I just said it. See it, smell it, taste it, touch it, hear it. Use your 5 senses, dive into that. What makes you feel good? Okay. So you want to also create a list of things that replenish you. All right. And you're going to put that on your worksheet that I have for you here. All right. Then what you're going to do, after you've identified the sources that you are using that are taking from you and giving back to you, you're going to start to stagger your load, right? We got to start to stagger our load, guys. A lot of times what we recognize and what we're doing, we got work all day long. So remember, we're using our brain all day long. It's nonstop. It doesn't stop. So a lot of things happen outside of our control. And before we know it, we can be so overwhelmed with things that have depleted us. We could have gone 10 hours straight with things that have taken from us. And we have all these things that really give us back, but we haven't plugged those things in. So I want you to get intentional about how you start to stagger your load. So if you felt like positive words, positive images, positive visuals are something that's very helpful for you, and you notice that you're in an office space or a space in your home that's really just set up for work and there's no real livelihood or life in your environment, start to put things up beside you. Put up pictures on your wall. Put up little memos on your computer screen so that you have ways to tap in and plug in to these positive lists, to these deposits so that you can earn $10, right? You got to fuel yourself back up. So what I want you to do is start to stagger your load. You're going to need to have for every 2 hours or for every 2 things that you do that deplete you, I want on that list that you incorporate one of those things that replenish you. Okay. For every 2 hours that you're being depleted, if you're having to be on Zoom and then you got a heavy call, you need to incorporate a break of something that replenishes you. Normally, our breaks are filled with things that we have to do from last week or that we didn't get done. No, your break needs to now be something that's on that list of replenishment. All right. Remember, charging your phone battery is important. So charging your mental and brain break has to become just as important. OK, so you're going to use this list. You're going to create the 5 things on the depleting side, the replenish side. You're going to stagger your load. So for every 2 things that deplete, you're going to incorporate one thing that gives you back. Okay, we're going to start to take control of how we're spending our brain's resources. Now, when you're asking the question about where my money went, you're going to ask, where did your brain power go? And you're going to look at this list, and we're going to do this together because I'm going to check in with you. I'm going to be a support for you here. If you have questions about this, go to tracyalston.com. Make sure you're sending me messages. I can walk through this with you. I want our Mental Fitness Matters community to take control over our mental health and mental fitness. We don't want to be behind the curve. We want to be in front of the game, and we want to make sure that we're helping people along the way. Okay. So now that you know how to overcome mental fatigue, is by managing what you're doing with your resources. Your brain's capable. You're capable, but you got to make sure you're paying attention to how your time is being spent. All right. So if this was helpful for you, just like every single day, you're remembering to wash your hands, put on your mask, social distance. Remember to check in with yourself, guys. Your mental fitness matters. I want my Mental Fitness Matters community to go out and shine bright like the stars that you are. Download that worksheet at tracyalston.com. I can't wait to see you guys next week. Have a great week.